discussed on this podcast are determined by the Justice Coordinating Commission of the Sisters of Providence of St. Mary of the Woods, Indiana. Guest opinions do not necessarily reflect those of the Sisters of Providence. To learn more, go to www.spsmw.org.
Welcome to Just Us, where we talk about creating an equitable human community and influencing change. Through shared stories, conversations, and inspiration, we will learn how we can make a difference in our communities. I'm Dr. Perlette Springer, a Providence Associate with the Sisters at St. Mary the Woods in St. Mary the Woods, Indiana. If you are a new listener and have never visited St. Mary the Woods, we are located west of Terre Haute, Indiana, on Route 150, approximately 4 miles east of the Illinois state line and about 80 miles west of downtown Indianapolis. Our guest today is Sarima Tapia. Sarima is a staff member at St. Mary's of Woods. We are here to discuss bystanding and upstanding from people of color perspectives. As always, we want to inspire you to take action from the common good. As Carrie Newcomer sings in her song, "If Not Now, Tell Me When." Sarima, welcome to the Providence Community Just Us podcast, where we discuss all things that center around justice.
Thank
Can you tell
you.
me a little about yourself?
Yeah. Again, my name's Sarima Tapia. I'm 29 years old. I'll be 30 this year. I don't know if to be happy or sad, but yes. Yes, I'll be 30 this year. I was born in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. And my family birth parents are from Puerto Rico. When I was about 12 years old, I moved to Puerto Rico. And yeah, I'm excited to be here today.
So why did your family how did you end up on the continent?
Okay.
And how did you end up in Terre Haute?
Out of all places.
Yes.
Well, when I was about 12 years old, like I said, we moved to Puerto Rico. I'm not sure why. My grandmother raised me. She never really talked money or anything like that with me. So we just got up and left. My stepdad, my grandmother, and myself got up and left. And then in Puerto Rico, I knew they were going through economic issues and things like that. And they decided maybe in Florida we'll do better. And that's what they did. Grandmother left my stepdad back there and we came over here. And I was living in Florida from the age of 12 till the year of 2022. So I was about 4 years ago when I moved from Florida to Terre Haute, Indiana. And the reasoning was because of love, because of my fiance. His family is from here. And, I followed him up here and I love it.
Love get us in trouble every time.
Yep.
So
it gets us driving in the cold and wishing we were back up there in Florida or down there in Florida, but hey, it's home now.
Well, welcome to Indiana. I was born and bred here. So I definitely understand wanting to live in a warmer climate, but here I am still in the snow belt. So today we're talking about bystanding and upstanding. The definition that I use for bystanding says it comes from the bystanding theory, also known as the bystanding effect. This is when the presence of others discourage an individual from intervening in an emergency situation against a bully or doing an assault on other crime. Whereas upstanding is when someone witnessed harmful behavior, such as bullying, harassment, or assault, and chooses to intervene, speak up, or act to support that person. Is this like this definition of upstanding and bystanding? Is this something you agree with, or do you understand the concept differently?
I do agree. I agree with the fact that upstanding is saying something and bystanding is not doing anything about it at all, or not in the moment, if I'm not mistaken.
In our previous conversation, you stated that you live with a chip on your shoulder due to the possibility of saying something or doing something, of somebody saying something or doing something negative towards you. I don't think of it as having a chip as much as being prepared to protect myself in some way. For example, I came down to Indiana State University right after graduating from high school. And as we know, Indiana
Okay.
State is within walking distance to West Terre Haute. And West Terre Haute
Mhm.
has always had a history in the state of Indiana, at least, of being unwelcoming to people of color. Actually, when I was young, West Terre Haute was known to have active Ku Klux Klan activities. I remember to this day that during my freshman orientation at Indiana State, and it was orientation for students of color, we were warned not to leave the campus on Halloween because of this KKK activity.
Hmm.
That narrative formed my fear that I still have to this day of driving through West Terre Haute. And every time I drive through West Terre Haute to get to St. Mary of the Woods, I consciously, out loud, tell myself to face my fear. So you've lived in Terre Haute for about 2 or 3, 4 years now. What has
Yeah.
been your experience living in Terre Haute?
Well, I will say in the beginning, it was tougher than what it is now. I definitely have both positive and negative experiences here when it comes to feeling like I'm being racially profiled or discriminated against. I've had a couple incidents where I definitely felt like were a bit of a discrimination. For example, at some point at a Walmart, I was in the seasoning aisle and I was talking to my mother on the phone, and this guy, white American guy, comes up to me and he asks me if I know where the Mexican, I believe it was Mexican garlic. And I said, well, I don't know about that, but I know this one here is, and he said, yeah, but I'm looking for the Mexican one. I'm like, I'm not Mexican. And he said, well, I heard you speaking Spanish, which meant to him, everyone who speaks Spanish is a Mexican. But I told him I'm not Mexican, I'm Puerto Rican. That's why I'm speaking Spanish. And he said, oh, okay. And he kept on walking, which now I'm thinking maybe he knew Puerto Rico meant, American citizen, or United States citizen is what I should say. But yeah, I definitely had those little weird experiences in a negative way, but I've also experienced positive feedback about looking different and being different. More now than ever, I feel like people who don't look like me are trying so hard to let me know that they accept me. Maybe it's because of the current administration. But now, I know a couple months ago, we spoke and I had a different view. But now I can tell you that I've definitely experienced the warmth, and people are trying to make me feel like I do belong. I get the bad ones too that are telling me, hey, that are making me feel like I'm don't belong, but I definitely have been feeling like I belong thanks to a lot of the white people here. And I just wanted to make that clear. When I'm in Walmart now and I'm trying to get something, I've got people telling me, well, we've got to stick together. Little hints here and there that are kind of like, don't worry, we got you, we're trying, from the white community. And so, yeah, the experiences have been both, but I see people trying and I greatly appreciate it.
I've noticed the same in the last several years that I've driven down to the woods. I remember I stopped for a gas station at a gas station on 150, and I walked in, and there were Indians, East Indians, running the gas station. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in West Terre Haute. There's East Indians running a gas station. And it was a surprise that brought warmth to my heart to know that a place that I grew up knowing that was anti people of color has changed this much in my lifetime. This much in my lifetime. And so those are the good things about being social justice oriented and seeing how change has happened. So it gives you hope that change can happen.
Right.
A year ago, Sister Barbara and I presented a workshop on moving from bystanding to upstanding. What was your experience, if you remember? I know it's been a whole year and we're not as young as we were a year ago, but how did you feel during the small and large group discussion? What feedback did you want or can you offer on that workshop?
Well, it was definitely a different experience. I've been several jobs and we all do training and we all get the basic training about not discriminating and this and that. But this activity that we all did together was definitely different because we spoke about uncomfortable things that people don't normally do speak about. And it really shed light to knowing how some of your coworkers feel about the upstanding and bystanding and that kind of thing. And really, overall, I feel like it's something that was definitely needed. I wish more different locations, different jobs did that as well, because it opens your eyes, it opens other people's eyes to see how someone may feel. And it gives other people courage to stand up for what's right. And overall, I believe that was the goal. And it worked,
Yeah, I think
in my opinion.
yeah, I think some of the fear centers around the social narrative in our country today. And we have a tendency to forget, especially people of color, we have a tendency to forget that there are white people who have our backs, who speak
Right.
up for us, who stand up for us, and do everything that they can to make us feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
For those who feel that they don't have the courage to be upstanders or to stand up for somebody, what would you say to them about becoming an upstander?
I would say to those people that it's understandable to be raised in a way and to feel like that is the correct way to be. But evidently, not everyone is raised the right way. At some point, we're going to have to look back and see our actions and see what it is that we can change to make other people feel better, feel comfortable. It's not about being a hero, it's about doing the right thing. So, for those people who feel fear, maybe because of their family, maybe they want to make sure that their family accepts them. Sometimes you've got to cut out the bad stuff regardless of what it is. And if they have fear of standing up, it means they know they have to stand up. They're just scared about it. So they already know right from wrong. Go ahead and do the next step, because it will matter. It will matter for the person that you're standing up for. It'll matter for you, your soul, your heart, and it'll definitely matter to Jesus that you did something.
You know, that's interesting what you just said, because I fail to understand the fear, or I shouldn't say understand. I understand why they're fearful. I don't understand the why, because there are consequences to every action. But I guess to say that clearly, because it's clearer, because it sounds like I'm mumbling right now. From my experience within families of people of color, there's divisions. You know, there's different perspectives, there's different opinions, they exist. But for the most part, we still invite all of our family members
Mm-hmm.
to family gathering. You know, we invite them to the table. We still meet up with our friends who have different opinions. We listen to these
Mm-hmm.
different perspectives. And I can't, and I'm thinking in my mind, I can't think of one family that I know that have stopped inviting other family members because they did not agree with them. You
Right.
know, my family, we still gather at the family, we listen to each other, we laugh. One of the things that we do, which is hilarious, is that we laugh at each other when they come up with these different perspectives. And it'd be like, seriously, is that seriously? Where you get
Mm-hmm.
that from? You know, but we laugh at each other and we move on, because we
Mm-hmm.
understand as family, it is okay to disagree and not to be on the same page. You
And
know,
that is true. It is okay to disagree, but it's not okay to be, how do I say this? It's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to do the wrong thing and for us to agree with that wrong thing, if that
that's
makes
correct.
sense.
That's correct. Yeah, it's okay to disagree, but again, to be out there doing it and hurting people and causing harm is unacceptable.
I'm going to give you an example real quick, and this is a bit personal, but I'll put it out there. My fiance is a white man, blue eyes, kind of blondish hair, and I'm a Puerto Rican woman. And with everything that's been going on with ICE, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand me. And that's where we disagree, right? But sometimes he pulls jokes that I really, really just don't like. Like if we're driving, he'll say, "Oh, that's ICE. There goes ICE." And he knows I'm driving and I'm a bit scared. Or he'll close the door when we get inside the house and he'll knock really hard on the door. And he doesn't get that it's not funny. So we disagree there, but he is okay with ICE and I am not. I'm out there with my posters and the rallies and making sure I do my part in whatever I can do. But he hates it. He is totally not okay with it. So we disagree there. And I'm trying to find the silver lining. I am trying to find the where does this become that, hey, maybe you are racist? We have a child together. How could that be? So it's a really difficult situation. It really is. It's okay to disagree, but it's not okay for us to be okay with some things. We can't just sweep it under the rug. sometimes we got to stand up for us because it's bigger than us.
Well, the one thing I've learned, Sarima, is that especially now with ICE being ICE, you know, and we see how aggressive they are in the cities. We see how almost lawlessness,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of how they are arresting people, you know,
Mm-hmm.
breaking windows and all that kind of stuff. But I
Scary.
think inside of our conversations that we have with friends, family members, even significant others, what is happening is that our unconscious bias that we do not even realize that we have, is coming into play. And usually when they come into play, they come in as what we would consider code words or microaggressions. And microaggressions is a statement or action or incident that's indirect, subtle, and unintentional. You know, they the person that usually makes these statements, these microaggressions, are not intentionally trying to cause harm
Right.
against persons of color. And I really don't know how to address that, because
Mm-hmm.
microaggressions does reveal unconscious bias. And, you know, it reminds me when I was young, probably your age, you know, there used to be a lot of joke about how many Polish people does it take to put in a light bulb, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and we all thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
We all thought it was funny, especially if the person who's putting in a light bulb is Polish, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing would apply to German people or Jewish people or African. It didn't matter. It was the same joke. And we all thought it was hilarious. And I've come to the point where, you know, the more I learn, the more I realize that these jokes are not funny. They are causing harm, you know, but that only
Just
comes,
someone.
yeah, but that awareness only comes when I actually examine myself, look at
Mm-hmm.
myself, and ask myself, why did I say that? You know, why am I so angry about this? Why does this bother me? You know, and
It
that,
takes, I think it takes so much, it takes an intellectual person. You don't have to be the smartest person, but to actually realize I have to rethink this. And a lot of people are not doing that. A
well,
lot of people aren't rethinking.
right. And I agree with you. And I don't know if intellect has anything to do with it. Years ago, I used to hang out with a group of overeducated people, you know, and I'm talking about people who have one or two masters, who have PhDs, who are in all these like high power positions, you
Right.
know. And so one of us of that group, he still keeps our email going. And so just recently, he's been sending out emails about what's going on in the country. And this group was social justice oriented. That's how we end up being in this group. And but the one thing that we avoided, or most of us avoided, was looking at ourselves. You know, as anytime we would bring this up, and usually it was me or this other friend of mine, we would bring this up in the conversation, and everybody would avoid talking about it because nobody wanted to look at themselves. They wanted to point to other people, you know, and
Oh, yeah.
and so that means, and so that's what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with intellect. It has to do with the
Okay.
willingness to go through the pain of understanding who you are, you know,
Yeah.
and that's difficult. One of the things, you know, when we talk about microaggressions, one of the things I wanted to mention that one of the common things that is viewed as a microaggression is when a white person compliments a person of color on everything they say or do or how they're dressed, even though they dress like everybody else in the room. You know, there's like this
Look at when
comment.
they say, "Look at that mocha baby. Isn't that
Yeah,
just a chocolate baby?"
yeah.
And
And
they don't realize it.
right, and they don't
Mhm.
realize it. And what I was going to say is that for Black women, it is the hair. So, like a few years, which is more than a few years ago, there was a movie or something about Black hair. And I remember hearing about the movie and I totally disregarded it. But because I was told about the movie, it was now in the back of my mind.
Mhm.
And because it was in the back of my mind, I started noticing that when I'm in a predominantly white environment or predominantly Mexican environment, several people would ask or say something about my hair or even want to touch it, you know. And it was a new awareness for me because I never paid no attention to it before.
Mhm.
And now I'm noticing that in certain environments, people look at my hair. And my thing is, well, my hair is no different than your hair, except it's a different texture and maybe a different color, but it's still
Mhm.
the same hair. And so I guess my question to you is, and we've been talking about it for a while, is how do we address these microaggressions and how do we help other people become aware of these microaggressions and their unconscious bias? Have you ever thought about that?
I feel like until we start just talking about it all the time to where it's drilled in everyone's, because I do it. I have my microaggressions and I don't even realize it, and then thinking later I'm like, "Oh snap, I did that." But until we start talking about it, calling it out right there on the spot all the time, it's going to be very difficult because it's such little minor things that happen throughout the world all the time. So until it starts getting called out all the time and brought up like, "Yep, you did that. Yep, and that was wrong. No, that sounded really that's racist, man." Until it's like all the time, that conversation of "that was wrong" every time it happens, I don't think it's going to get better unless we do that, unless we call it out all the time. And it doesn't have to be in a negative way. It doesn't have to be in a angry way. It could be in a positive way. It could be in a explaining way, even with the joke. If you're talented enough of a comedian to let everyone know how wrong that is, just it has to be talked about though, and it has to be called out every time in order for people to wake up and realize we are doing this, and I include myself. We are doing this and it's wrong.
Oh, I totally agree with you, Sarima. And you're right about having your own microaggressions. I know I have mine, except mine's is conscious. It's not unconscious. I would purposely do something to counteract another microaggression, and I knew it caused harm. But I would say in the last 5 years for sure, I've stopped, you know, because I no longer want to cause pain to other people because of the pain I have felt. But I know your time is limited. So I don't want to keep you longer than you can be here. So thanks, Sarima. I love this
I
conversation.
want to say one more thing.
Go right ahead.
Just one more quick thing. I just wanted to make sure I make myself clear when I say this. With everything that's going on right now, with the administration, with ICE, with the people being so divided, I want to make sure that I say not to get confused when the minorities are uniting. It doesn't mean that the white people are going to now be the ones picked on. It just means we're all going to finally be equal.
It is a good move towards equality. It is a good move. I am loving this moment because, I would say that I've been in the field of racial equity and equality probably for 26, 27 years now. It has been a hard struggle in trying to explain to Latinos in general, whether they're Puerto Rican, whether they're Mexican, whether they're from Central America, explaining to other Blacks from other parts of the Americas, explaining to Africans who did not speak up, who did not support African Americans in the fight for racial equity and equality. And to now to see these pictures where we're all there, we're all there, we're all fighting. And just recently, as yesterday, Sister Barbara sent a video, I'm sorry, a picture of Native Americans camped outside of the detention center in Minneapolis in tents, praying for the people in detention centers. And I'm like, oh man, we're finally, as people of color, coming together finally. And I think that's the best thing that ever happened in this country. The best thing that ever happened in this country. So thanks, Sarima. Thanks for bringing up that last little comment. That is like excellent, at least in my book. I love this conversation. I probably
Thank you.
could talk about it for a while, but I do want to do want to say that moving from bystanding to upstanding is not an easy thing. There's consequences, but we have to start somewhere. From my perspective, being an upstander is simple. It could be as simple as unfollowing someone on social media or being honest with our friends or family members when they say or do something and that is unacceptable. As Cardinal Tobin just said just a few weeks ago, just say no. Just say no. That is unacceptable. And then we can go a little bit further to explain why and how they can change or stop such behavior. Always keeping in mind that committing harm to repair harm causes more harm. I think that if we all put into upstanding, if we all put something into practice, we put upstanding into practice, we could bring about a social change that we all are hoping and praying for. As I always say, it's all about relationships with each other, relationships with creation, and relationship with our creator. To kind of summarize some of the suggestions that we had about action, I would basically say call it out when you see it or hear it, call it out what it is. Don't be disrespectful, no need to raise your voice, just call it out. That's the only way to move it from our unconscious to our conscious so we can kind of understand what we're saying and how it is causing harm. And I definitely want to repeat what Cardinal Tobin said a few weeks back. Just say no. This is unacceptable. No. And that itself makes you an upstander just by saying this is no longer acceptable. Thank you, Serena.
Yeah.
Sharima, it has been a pleasure and an honor talking with you today. Godspeed on your
Thank you so much
journey.
for having me.
Oh, I love talking to you. It's always good. The next time I'm down at the woods, I will definitely let you know in advance, you know.
Oh, please.
And maybe we can hang out for a minute. Uh,
Yeah.
Godspeed on your journey with being upstanding, upstander, and may the Holy Spirit continue to inspire you in the work of love, mercy, and justice.
Amen.
And thank you, Just Us listeners, for taking the time to share this space with us today. We hope that you have been inspired by our conversation and have learned a little bit about moving from bystanding to upstanding and about the experiences of people of color living and working and participating in predominantly white environments. Are you now ready to begin making a difference within your own community, within your own family, within your own circle of friends? If not now, tell me when. This episode has been brought to you by the Providence community at St. Mary of the Woods. The producers of this podcast are Associates of Providence, Jane Fisher and Susie Ray, and the Sisters of Providence, Barbara Batista. Sister Barbara is the justice promoter for the Sisters of Providence. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and will share with others in your network of friends, family, and community. Feel free to leave any comments, reviews, and suggestions for future topics at spsmw.org/contact. Thank you for listening. Talk to you soon.